Welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the audio-only version of the podcast, where we don't care what's behind us, and we're not going to talk about any visuals and going to assume you can't actually see us.
Yeah, we're back into our familiar wheelhouse and not out there in the scary world of multimedia nonsense.
Oh my god.
Which is nice. For context, this is our Wheel of Time TV show summary, recap, complete thing. We're just going to kind of collect our final thoughts on the TV show season 1 before we return to Path of Daggers. If you want all of our thoughts, please head to our YouTube page where you will find all those videos. They aren't all out yet, but that is where you will find them. That's where you're going to get the outpouring of thoughts that we had about each and every frame of each and every episode. Here on the podcast, we are generally not going to talk about the show at all, with the exception of the last episode that was posted that you may have heard that had the guys in the car all coming back from that screening, and this episode where we collect our thoughts one last time. So if you don't care about the TV show, don't want to be spoiled on the TV show, hated the TV show, skip ahead. Just move right along to our next Path of Daggers episode, which we will be recording next week. And yeah, we're going to try to really keep our thoughts about the show here and not really talk about the show in future episodes about Path of Daggers. We aren't going to constantly be returning to references to the show. I'm sure it will happen occasionally, but we're a little bit played out as it comes to content creation on the show, and it's a separation of church and state. We know that not everyone who's into the podcast cared about the show at all or cared for it. So we're not going to combine those things. We're just going to have our thoughts here. And then next week we'll return to Path of Daggers. Yeah, that's kind of what we're at. And this is going to be chaos.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
And I more and more think that the show is so much of a different entity than the book. They really do come down on a different, it's a different storyline almost.
Yeah.
So, it's different medium, different motivations, there's just so much about it that's different. It was fun when we didn't know anything to have just an occasional speculation through, but now it's just like, well, let's see what they do,
Yeah, which I will say I'm actually more and more happy that it's not a shot-for-shot recreation. I started watching A Discovery of Witches, which is a really cool trilogy of books that I didn't realize had been turned to screen. Well, I knew it had been turned to screen, but I didn't know that I wanted to watch it. And then one of the actors who was cast for season 2 of Wheel of Time, turns out he's in A Discovery of Witches. So I was like, fuck it. Like, let's see if I can find it. And I just, bought it for like $10 a season on YouTube. And the author of the books is involved in that production. And it is very nearly a shot-for-shot recreation of the books. Every little detail. There's a lot of the internal exposition that she couldn't capture, but almost every single scene, almost every single piece of dialogue, almost every single set is like, that's how it was in the books, which is fine, but it's a lot less exciting and awesome than I thought it would be. It's a little bit like, oh, well, I know how the scene's going to turn out. Like, there's no tension. The actors are cool. I mean, it's fine, but it's less engaging.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, I'm actually really warming up to the fact that there is no point in trying to compare the Wheel of Time show to the books, except on a couple of very specific points. We'll be able to speculate for years. I mean, how are they going to handle the beat that is the Tower Coup? Sure, but like the fact that I'm just enjoying it as a fan rather than as a spoilers person. It's really grown on me at this point.
And there's definitely things that are different. And I thought for a while maybe we could like do a comparison between the books and the show, but they've really gone so far off. It's like there's not a lot of webbing to connect the two. To be like, oh, well, they're going to make this little change. No, they've made so many big changes that at this point it's like, well, I'm excited to see where they go with it. But I really don't want to speculate, because at that point it really is just pure speculation, which is different from headcanon and different from spoilers and different from, that's just punditry.
Yeah. And I think that when it comes time to deal with season 2, we might take a different approach as content creators to what we did with season 1. I think that, well, time and space will tell. We don't know. But I suspect strongly that we are going to have a different strategy for how we want to approach covering season 2 because of that exact, like we are no more qualified than any other book fan to speculate. Like, there's nothing spoilery about the speculation we can bring to it at this point. No. We'll still have to respond. We're still going to react, but I don't think we're going to spend 6 hours breaking it down frame by frame with the spoilers. We'll get there when we get there. But yeah. It's a whole new world, and I'm not unhappy about it, but it is unexpected. Lillian, you shut your keyboard. You shut your keyboard.
Yeah, we're not really good at approaching things in a casual way, are we? We don't just sort of casually walk up to them and be like, oh yeah, let's spend 10 minutes talking about that. That's, we're no Daniel Green, I'll tell you that. That's
No. I know you see his deep dives and it's not even 30 minutes. It's like, get out of here. It's not a deep dive.
Yeah. Our reactions are longer than your deep dives, all right?
I honestly think at this point that what would be nice for season 2 would be what we would call a quick reaction and what Daniel would call a deep dive. And then just doing that. And then after the season, going back through the whole season and like spoilering each episode with respect to what we got in the season. I think that might be more fun, but that is neither here nor there.
And we're not Wheel Takes, which they do have all sorts of industry knowledge.
Yeah.
They're like, that's the thing is there's a lot of content creators out there that got into this when the TV show was coming out because they have expertise in television.
Yeah.
We don't. I barely watch. Well, I shouldn't say I barely watch TV. There's a lot of TV playing in the background of my life. But I don't, I do not consume TV the way I consume books. I don't study it. I don't care about it in the same way. So I feel like I have less to contribute to that side of the conversation of the production and the choices they make and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So. They have got that on lock. If you want that analysis, then go listen to people who are qualified.
Go listen to them. Yeah.
We are not. We are simple consumers. No. Yeah. I'm glad that there's so many people out there who are able to just go in that direction, but it's exhausting to someone who has to learn every single piece of it on the fly. Like, no, I want to go absorb their content instead of trying to make it. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at on that. But really the point of today is to sort of chaotically and non-linearly recap the entire season with respect to what I, pithily called the good, the bad, and the unexpected. Because we have complaints. You know us, we have complaints.
Oh, yeah. We complain about Robert Jordan's writing all the time, so like exactly. It's there's no doubt. We can criticize perfection, so we can certainly criticize mere mortals that walk among the earth.
Exactly. But there's a lot that we loved, and then there was stuff that was just unexpected and is hard to bin as either good or bad. So I got us a few bullet points, and I think that we can just, meander about this one last time before putting it to rest and getting back to Path of Daggers.
So I think the first thing that really you want to talk about is, you said costumes, but visuals is sort of the way I want them. Like costumes and colors and sets and the way everything looked. And I do think costumes is a big part of that. I saw an interesting breakdown that showed a bunch of different scenes and gave them a color. And it really does, it occurred to me that they made a really solid effort to make one of the 7 colors dominant in almost every scene.
Really?
Green, blue, gray. Yeah. And like, I wasn't really thinking about that at the time, but as I go back and watch it, and I think that's going to be interesting to watch on a rewatch, is to be like, oh, this is a green scene. This is a blue scene. This is a red scene. This is like in the tower, almost everything is white because it's dominated by logic. In the forest, everything's green because they're battling. And it's like, I'm wondering how much intention was put into the dominant color. And what made me think about that is that we have the Ajahs that are in their costumes displaying primary colors.
That is interesting. I hadn't noticed that. I was struck by the intensity of color saturation in every scene, and I was loving that, especially when I've recently, picked up The Witcher again, and it's just like another palette of gray. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had not thought of actually like framing it in terms of like which of the 7 colors. That's yeah, that's interesting because I mean that Gildan scene, that cold open is just yellow. It's just all these ambers and ochres and oh yeah. That was one of my favorite parts about the show was how they just leaned into color. They're just like, this is a fantasy
bright
series.
Color.
We're not doing it in muted grays. We're not embarrassed of the fact that this is swords and magic. Like, nah, huge saturation.
And this isn't medieval fantasy. This is alternate future, post-apocalyptic, where we still have a lot of futuristic stuff and knowledge from, there's still a lot of knowledge from the Third Age, and the Third Age was more advanced than we are. So
yeah,
you can't say these are all ignorant, all dumb people.
I love the non-periodness of this. The fact that it's all periods and none. This is of all time and none, which is wonderful, both in terms of the styling and in terms of like, how are they so clean? Well, they understand that bathing is important and they have the power.
Also, I know we all have this idea that people in medieval times were just like dirty and smelly all the time. And I just don't buy it.
A lot of historical costumers also do not buy it.
Yeah.
Definitely the colonials that came over to the United States were dirty, disease-ridden bastards. But yeah, European society on the whole across centuries is, we have a very specific picture.
Mostly it's the cities.
It's a very specific nugget that is from like the worst of the worst in the Dark Ages. And it's like centuries of history, layers of society. There's so many costumers on the internet that just will spend hours telling you how wrong that is. Yeah.
And people don't like being dirty. I don't care it's not like people were suddenly okay with being dirty and smelly in the Middle Ages. When they were clean in the Roman ages and clean in the modern ages, but in the Middle Ages, they just wallowed in filth because they loved it. Like, no, no, I don't buy it.
Yeah. So and the buildings and the sets. I loved the sets, both the ruins, the super old ruins, the sort of more modern ruins, the conveyances. I mean, Patton Fane's wagon.
No, that was great.
The Tuatha wagons, like, I loved all the buildings, mobile or otherwise.
I would say they did a better job of the outdoor and exterior buildings than the interiors. I found a lot of the interiors somewhat barren.
Yeah.
Or empty.
But I do find that's my complaint with most like futuristic sci-fi. It's always too fucking barren and clean. So it's kind of appropriate, I guess. But yeah.
If you have to invent everything, it's hard to just have a messy room because everything is invented from scratch. And so creating mess and clutter takes a lot more effort than just having 1 or 2 well-placed, well-designed chairs, like I can see why they end up doing that. But yeah, especially like in the White Tower, I found a lot of those interiors. It looked like they got 90% of the way there and then didn't quite like put in the rest of the furniture or put in the hang. It's like when you move into an apartment and you've just moved in and quite haven't fully unpacked.
Yeah, totally. It's not quite as lived in, which, that was another thing I liked about, getting into the Tuatha space was their space, like you said, it was outdoors. It felt more lived in. They had so many more clothes and cooking implements. And I bet if we were going to go inside the wagons, it would be just as full of stuff. But yeah, it was... I mean, most of the story takes place outside at this stage in the thing.
Right,
I mean, when we get to like the entire season is in a palace, like I do hope that they get a little bit more of their money goes into wall hangings and seafolk porcelain and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and then like we get such good descriptions of Aes Sedai rooms. Like it would be cool to see the inside of Aes Sedai rooms, right, and see what those are described.
If we don't get Varen's room.
No.
And the owl and the Trolloc skeleton. And I mean, that room is just, we need it. We need it.
But again, there's so much that like, at this point, there is nothing in the books that I think is guaranteed to be in the show.
Yeah.
Right, the spine is there, but I don't think there's any individual vertebrate that is getting kept, right? Like, I think that anything could go at this point.
Well, I mean, some will be kept, but we cannot anticipate what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know which ones they're going to be. Yeah. Do my as wells is pretty important. That's like, the butt of, like if the final battle's the head,
the entire story.
it really is the asshole of the entire story. But so much has changed around the seals and lore, and there's a lot of things that have to happen in the books because of the way that it is, because of the way the lore's set up, that got changed. So now, like I said, not only just based on what's changed in the first season, but just the fact that they're willing to make those sort of drastic changes means that I don't have any ability to predict what's going to be in the series and what's not going to be in the series.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm certainly not going to be like, if they don't give me X, Y, and Z, I'm going to be upset because I said that and I was upset, and I don't like that feeling, I don't like being like, oh, if I don't get, if we don't get the Green Man at the Eye of the World, I'm going to be upset. I think I said that, and it's like, I didn't get the Green Man at the Eye of the World, and I really wanted the Green Man at the Eye of the World.
Yeah.
I didn't get Bail Domon, I didn't get some of my favorite characters. So I'm not going to convince myself I know what's coming.
Yeah.
For damn sure.
And learning to let go of, like, I really want to see Varen study. We have to. There's no way. Like, just learning to let that go is a profound spiritual lesson on certain points.
It is.
But we could all do with that lesson. Everyone could do with just sitting with that and feeling it and then letting it go. Because we don't know what we're going to get. We know we're going to get a story that makes us excited and upset and happy and sad. We're going to get all of that. We're going to get things where we go, oh my God, that's just like it was in the books. Or, oh my God, there's an Easter egg that lets us know that they read the books, and a bunch of stuff that we're like, wow, I wonder if Jordan would have done that if he could rewrite the books. Like, we're going to get it all, and we won't know until we get there. Another thing, moving from visuals, audio. Really, really loved the soundtrack to this show. I pre-ordered the vinyl when that came available. I don't remember when it's getting shipped out, sometime this spring, I think, but I did pre-order the vinyl of the soundtrack because I found it very intriguing. I did not expect so many, I don't want to say modern sounds because that's probably like a gross overstatement, but it felt a lot quirkier and more multi-period and modern than I would expect from a period fantasy piece, which again, like with the visuals, it doesn't feel period. The music didn't feel period either, and I deeply enjoyed that. Though I did think when I was re-binging it that they overused that one riff like too many times. Like, okay, we get it. That's the Aes Sedai theme. You wrote other songs. Come on. Changing the speed doesn't make it a new song, okay?
Yeah, and for me, the music is never. I've listened to it, I've downloaded it, and it's not something I go to listen to. It's not like, oh, I want to pop on the soundtrack.
Oh, I haven't gotten there yet either. I just adore it in the show, and I know I'll enjoy the vinyl.
I think it's used really well in the show. I think that they do a really good job of conveying the emotions with it, and giving you the cues that you need, both for the characters, especially the sound design around Pat and Fane, I think is fantastic. They did a lot to make me love certain characters that I didn't always love. I was impressed by that. That was one of the big changes that like making me care about Leandrin for a second was like, I was like, oh, ouch. Yeah. All of Loghain's stuff was just great. Everything about Loghain, loved it, was really happy that we got that because we didn't get to see it in the books. And I think that was probably my favorite part of season 1 is all the scenes that happened in the books off screen that we got to be there for. Yeah,
I agree. Loghain being brought forward as a plot there's so much. I mean, first of all, ragingly wonderful performance and giving so much more of a window into the world and what does the Dragon Reborn breaking all bonds look like. But also it sets us up for a lot of the tension around Rand being the dragon is really enhanced by that. And he just so much world building was able to ride on his arc, and he just fucking killed it. I'm so ready to have sad Loghain just being the saddest thing ever. It's gonna be so sad.
I'm interested to see the contrast between him and Suan as I hope they get to travel together and be still together.
Yeah, and then get healed and respond to that in different ways. Yeah, those performances, those arcs, those can be some fireworks for sure. I also liked all of the little bits of like Foley that they put in. I felt like they could have done more with the Foley. much like with, you know, filling in the clutter of someone's house or the decorations in the tower. I did feel like we could have had more Foley, but they did give us, you know, like cool shimmers for the power. And supposedly there's a Taviran sound, which I haven't spotted yet. Bird songs, you know, like they actually included bird song at different points. Like I did enjoy that. I felt like it could have been more robust, but it was there. It wasn't just like generic in the same scene every time. I did get a sense of place from the Foley underneath the music, which I really see the world through sound a lot. Sound is really important to me. So to have a sense of place, not just be in the color palette, but also in the sound palette, I thought was really nice.
And that's something I want to listen to more on rewatch, is really open my ears up more, because I was so focused on the visual and the characters and the visual details that I was letting the sound pretty much control me without engaging in it actively.
Yeah, I really just kind of want to listen to it just blindfolded, just like watch the show blindfolded, just to hear all the things, like even just the opening sequence, which we've all heard, you know, 75,000 more times than we've seen the episodes. I still like just closing my eyes for that. There's a lot of layers in the way that the voices work and when the bass comes in and when it goes out. And there's lots of cool stuff there that you just really aren't going to pick up on if you're watching the screen. If you close your eyes, there's a whole other dimension. And I suspect that the entire show is like that if I could make myself close my eyes and stop looking at the pretty colors.
And I see a lot of depth. I see a lot of depth with the side characters. I see, you know, everything they did with the warders, everything they did with Kareen and showing the green and the battle Aja, I thought was really good. They made that whole episode where they were fighting in the forest awesome, right? Really cool representation of Aes Sedai using their powers and the practical ways in which they can use it when fighting in a situation like that.
Yeah, and it wasn't all visuals. There was an audio component to how that went down, which made it, you know, it's not just a special effect. It's like the two-legged cheese who touched the wind that moves the fire or whatever the wolves call them.
There's more to it than what you just see. Yeah.
Yeah, there's layers to it, and that's it's so your subconscious is still chewing on it even when you think you've gotten all of it, which is good. That's it speaks to the quality of the work that they want you to be absorbing, which is neat. Should we move into bitching about it? Just a little bit.
I think I'm ready to do that. Yeah.
Well, let's move on from the good into the bad. What did we not like?
So, I have to preface this with, I just sat down and watched Arcane.
Oh, okay.
And Arcane, which, yeah, the relevant information is 9 episodes, 40 minutes, ensemble cast, lots of magic.
Okay.
Right? I'm amazed at how much storytelling and how much more dense the storytelling is in something like Arcane than something like The Wheel of Time. So when I look at The Wheel of Time, and I see people complain about, oh, we need more time and we need more expansive time to tell this story, I say, yes, I want that as well, but I also want denser writing. The dialogue per minute was so low in this season. There was so little actual words spoken that it's very hard to build up complex relationships.
I was having similar thoughts while watching season 2 of The Witcher, that they are using so much less to tell the story than Wheel of Time, and how Wheel of Time feels very rushed and like they're compressing too much into it while also not giving me the depth I want. And then looking at The Witcher being like, everyone's falling over themselves for The Witcher and there's like nothing here plot wise. Like I don't understand anything happening in the plot. I don't care about any of the dialogue that's happening. I'm really just in it to see Henry Cavill slash some monsters. That's really why I'm watching that show. And yet it has these long lingering shots of these very boring sets and these meaningful glances over nonsense dialogue, and it's a very Wheel of Time's better than that, but it could do so much better, and it sounds like maybe I should give Arcane a try.
I would recommend it, yes.
Cool.
Don't recommend League of Legends in the slightest.
Okay, cool.
So, and not to bring up other series, but just to talk about watching that made me realize what was missing from Wheel of Time was density.
Yeah.
You know, and that's more so than runtime. I think, you know, when people get into this debate, and I've seen it a lot of like, oh, well, a 2-hour pilot and 10 episodes would have given the time he needed. And it's like, Yes, it would have helped, I believe, but I think there's a fundamental problem of not using the time that you have to tell a dense story.
Yeah, my major complaint with it is the editing. I can tell that they shaved off an extra half second. First, they shave off 5 minutes. Fine. That's how editing works. Then they shave off 5 seconds. Fine. Then they're shaving up 0.5 seconds and cutting out finishing a gesture, finishing a look, finishing a sentence. And it's like all of that material exists. You shot it. It got through so many rounds of editing. And then you just pulled it in just a little more. And that's what really infuriates me about it is this just weird algorithmic marketing kind of compression.
But I feel like that does come back to the writing in that you have to be prepared to write for the time that you have. And if you write too much and you have to compress it in the editing, if you film too much and you have to cut it down, like that is also on the writing team for not setting up the editing team correctly.
Yeah. And that's where my industry ignorance is showing.
And I'm a little bit sort of pulling this out of my ass because I am also very industry ignorant. But like, if you can't, this is something that a tightly storyboarded show doesn't have those kinds of cuts because they already know how long their scenes are going to be. They know how much time they're going to have. And I'm just wondering, like, at what point did they fall down between knowing they had 8-hour-long episodes and that really, 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 really tight editing?
Yeah.
Like somewhere between those two, there was like someone measured in yards and thought they were and reported it in meters. And there's a mismatch in measurements by a little bit. And that's why we're getting all of these awkward cuts.
And that's why the show tanked it into the surface of Mars rather than landing gracefully.
Exactly. and that's how I feel is I feel like the mission was 90% of the way there, but that last 10% tanked it into the surface. And instead of a soft, graceful landing, And I will say the landing was the biggest problem for me for the show.
Yeah. And I don't know, but I really want to put this blame on Amazon and its marketing team and not on the creatives doing the show. My intuition is that this was a top-down decision that they did their best with. And I really want to yell at Amazon exclusively for that, just because they have the money to do whatever they want. We have seen the shows they can put out. We've seen the shows everyone else is putting out. Like,
right. That
can't be a primarily creative team problem. That has got to be a fucking suits in boardrooms problem. Like, until I see hard evidence otherwise, that's the take I've got on it.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the primary cut scene for me, which was Egwene coming up out of the pool covered in paint.
I will literally murder someone if you can tell me that they are the person that made that call. I will literally murder them.
Because everyone saw the preview and glammed onto that. It had the foreshadowing of the 7 colors. It was clearly something in the 2 rivers. It was really cool about Egwene. It did a great job of foreshadowing her as the Dragon Reborn. Like, it had everything. And then it wasn't in there. And I just have to wonder, like, at what point in the process was that cut?
Yeah.
Because to me, that's going to tell me a lot about what is going on with the production team. And I do want to bring up COVID, because obviously we know that COVID came in and threw a big wrench into the end of the filming. My counter argument to that is the first 6 episodes were filmed, and VX can be done from home. So like, I don't give them any breaks on the first 6 episodes. Nothing in the first 6 episodes, I think, can be contributed to COVID. The special effects were fantastic. They did such a good job. And that's the other thing is, like, this is the only show that I'm hearing that came out that's saying, well, COVID was a big problem. All the other shows dealt with COVID, and no one is saying, well, these episodes specifically sucked because of COVID.
Well, in fairness, also, we aren't paying the kind of granular attention to those other shows, and those other shows are not giving us like minute by minute updates on how things are going. So it may be that they were able to smooth out things that we haven't paid enough attention to know. And I mean, the thing with Barney leaving, like, most of my issues with the last 2 episodes have to do with storytelling more than, I mean, the editing is shit the whole way through. Like, my complaints about the editing are consistent throughout the whole show. Though I do feel like, in terms of pacing, it got better after episode 1. I feel like episode 1 was like,
episode 1 was
chopped together and ridiculous.
So choppy.
It smooths out, which is very accurate to the first book. The first book's pacing gets a lot better as you get through the book. It starts out so goddamn slow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I'm very, very curious to know how much it was just a budget thing, just a COVID thing, just an executive thing, just a Matt leaving. Like, how do these things go together? We'll never know. And there's no other show I would ever begin to care about. That was something I thought about a lot since we recorded our last episode, is like, there are so many issues I have with every show I've ever watched. Only in Wheel of Time do I give a shit. And like continuity errors, where was that prop? Where was that line? All that kind of stuff. Like, I see those things and I get mad about them in other shows, but I don't make content about other shows. And so that's the whole thing too.
My other real big complaint, I think, is that we didn't get a chance to revisit any characters. Almost ever. Even over the course of the season, so many characters were introduced, we saw them for an episode or two, and then they were never referenced again. Logain? And I'm not talking about mine, I'm not talking about the Warders or Stefan or someone who was introduced and killed off. I'm talking about major characters. Suwon, Logain, everybody in the Two Rivers. Like, other than Armin's Field 5.
Aram.
Even Loyal, essentially, is barely in the episodes he's in, you know? And so I really, and that's where I have to come back to my Arcane, is the amount of actual individual character development. I think one of the reasons why we totally didn't feel like we had any characters developing is we only got them for an episode or two, and then they were gone. Where, again, I go back to Arcane, you introduce all these characters, and yes, some of them die off, but you keep coming back to the same characters over the course of the season, and they keep getting more interesting and developing. There's a time jump, you know, and then you have an older version of these characters. And it was hard to watch and to think about Wheel of Time and be like, okay, great, I got introduced to all of these characters, but I didn't get to see them again. I'm not going to see them again for at least a year, and there's no guarantee that they're going to come back, especially since it will be, 3 years since they've been filming the first season. So it made it hard to care about actors and characters that I know I'm not going to see again. Whereas Wheel of Time is so much the opposite. Oh, here's a character. We are going to see them 5 times again coming up. Oh, here's an item. Yes, that's going to be important. So and how many times have I talked about the cycles within cycles within cycles, right? Book 1 is a cycle. The first 3 books is a cycle. And then the whole 14 books is this other cycle. And like, he comes back to these same elements and same cores, and that didn't happen in the show. It was, here's the thing. Isn't that cool? Okay, put that away. Here's another thing. Isn't that cool? Put it away.
Yeah, I agree. It felt like they tried to do too much and ended up doing too little. Like, somehow at the same time, they tried to pack the whole book in, and yet somehow didn't stick the landing on that. And there are so many shows that really do like manage to pack in so much detail into so little. And this, I feel like they tried, and a lot of the misses are because they tried, but somehow that compression, that lossless file format just fucking fell off the edge in so many ways. And we will see another level of the story writing when we get to season 2. We'll get to see, like, to what degree are they planning on cycling things across a season. But yeah, it was definitely like cool book Easter egg of the week rather than building a web, so to speak.
And I think that's most emblematic by the Saint Angriel, the item of uber power that Moraine happens to have in her pocket for this last battle and hands to Rand. No foreshadowing, never seeing it before.
Aside from the literal cold open of the whole show.
The literal cold open, which was only inserted at the last minute and was clearly filmed after everything else, and was like, I didn't like it. I thought it was really bad. Her handing him that Terangrial with absolutely no foreshadowing or knowledge, or even telling us what the hell a Saw Angrial is before she hands it to him. Like, it's just the most simplest stuff of, like, tell us what the stuff is before it gets used. It was something I used to complain about a lot in Harry Potter, is it's like, oh, we have a problem. Here's a time turner, oh, we have a problem. Here's, here's the basilisk fang that we,
Yeah.
And it's something that Wheel of Time never does. It always introduces you to a concept before it uses it. And so, yeah, I really feel like they failed with that on the TV show. Is they just sort of, it felt very Deus Ex Machina. Whatever you need is going to be in your pocket.
Yeah. And that doesn't feel necessary.
Mm-mm.
Like, we are not industry professionals, obviously, but like, we have thought about this long enough that it's like, but we can come up with a better way you could have done that. Like, surely your writer's room could. There was a lot of conflicting priorities, I think, that went into this, and it was a major tug of war, and that really makes me wonder how much budget was the reason why decisions ended up coming down on one side versus the other. Because I heard every explanation I have ever heard or made about the show comes back to, well, I can see why they did it for budget reasons, and it's like, this is fucking Amazon. Like, that shouldn't be an element in our critiques. We shouldn't be saying, well, because of the budget. That is bullshit. And I do wonder how much of all of this is rippling out effects of this fundamental underfunding problem, which I don't know because I haven't bothered to actually do research. I just really want to know.
I also wonder, everyone claims underfunding, but I'm like, wait, before it came out, everyone was saying it was highly overfunded. And now that it's come out and it's not good, people are saying it was underfunded? What? It feels very, justification. Like we're justifying.
Well, I've seen some numbers. I just haven't dug into them with my own like journalistic integrity. I just have seen a lot of numbers that it's like,
same.
That seems really suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know.
And a lot of better shows are made with lesser budgets.
And it's also frustrating that a lot of season 2 was already getting filmed and processed before any of it got released. I do worry that a lot of the lessons that they could potentially be learning from the collective response to the show will not be able to be reflected in season 2. Obviously, the editing will still be an option, but the writing is like, that's done, right? Like, if the fandom has had any influence, it won't show up until season 3,
right? Which
is frustrating. I mean, I'm glad that we got the news it was greenlit for season 2 before season 1 dropped. That's cool, but it's also like, you're not going to get any market testing lessons until season 3. So, and to get back into the actual story of it, do you want to rant about the magic system for a bit?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. Let's go there.
Yeah. So Wheel of Time has multiple magic systems. It's got a hard magic system in channeling, and it has a soft magic system in the dream world. And those two come together in, it's just a weave, Egwene, right? Like, that's why that's so awesome, because that's the interaction of how, like, your soft magic system can just beat a hard magic system, because it just can sometimes, right? Because there are no rules to a soft magic system, except it takes place just in the dream, and, like, there's a little bit of blurring during that in the last battle. The TV show took what was the hard magic system of channeling and made it the soft magic system of dump some power in and wish. Which is fine in the world of dreams. That's what the world of dreams is. That's why I like it so much. You take your willpower, you make what you want to happen, and that's why the battle with Rand when he pulls Kalendor against Baalzamon in book 2, such a good fucking story, because he's in the world of dreams and he's using a combination of a mass amounts of one power to supplement, which is a hard magic, to supplement the soft magic of the world of dreams. And so he just brings things back into balance, quote unquote. But that's a lot of the soft magic in the Wheel of Time's explained with combining Telebrand Riad with channeling. And what he's done is, with healing, you dump magic and wish. With explosions, you dump magic and wish for, and it explodes. With lightning, you put magic into the sky. There's no weaving of threads. It's just pull in as much power as you can, which we saw in the final battle against the Trollocs, and just expand it out at them. And what happens will happen. It was fine for Wilders having one weave that could do that, but I am not a fan of the way they're doing it for the show.
Yeah. I'm disappointed that we're not getting even a discussion of the 5 powers. That's frustrating.
Yeah. No, not even a discussion. They're gone. There is no colors. There's no, like...
They could have at least given us some dialogue. Even if they didn't animated. They could have at least talked about it, but they haven't even talked about it.
There's no, but that's the thing. There's so little dialogue in this show.
Yeah, back to that.
I would love to get analysis of like words per minute for this whole show compared to anything else.
Yeah. I do like the, my Waldorf kids will recognize this. I do like the eurythmy aspect of channeling, interpretive dance for all of you non-Waldorf people.
And that's one of my least favorite parts of it.
I didn't like it at first, but it's grown on me. But I wish that they were doing more with it, being more creative.
If you're removing the actual weaving, right? If you're not showing threads of the power weaving together and someone concentrating on those threads, then what they're concentrating on is their movements.
Yeah, and I mean, it was cool with stuff like the linking to gentle low gain, because the
Sure.
body motions really mimicked what the weave was, and it helped create that sense of this is a dance troupe doing a single performance. Like, there's really cool ways to go with that, but it's...
Mm-hmm.
And you need more. It's unsatisfying. And also, like, we've gotten, the men are not really doing much in the way of dancing about. We had that one little shot of Luce there and putting his hands over his face. But other than that, the men are twitching their pinkies. And that's how they channel.
Yep.
And only women are flailing about. And there's a lot of room to give us cool cultural differences between like the Aiel and the Shan and White Tower channelers. Like, that could be a way that they give us regional flavors to that. But it's no colors and only big body motion dance moves is it's unsatisfying.
It's very unsatisfying.
I really want them to make the magic system harder in the future seasons as we get deeper into the mechanics of it, but I'm suspecting I'm going to be disappointed. I think they're going to give us something, and it's going to be disappointing in terms of its complexity. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to be proven right in form, but not in spirit, which sucks.
Because they're absolutely removing a lot of the complexity of the world. Like, they are saying, we don't know how to do this on screen. And instead of saying, okay, we're going to take a shot at it, they're like, well, then we're just not going to do it. And I think that may be my biggest disappointment of the whole show, is that I went into it wondering how they were going to do X, Y, and Z. And the answer was they're not.
Yeah.
And that's rough, because there's so much I wanted to see on television that was part of the Wheel of Time, that the answer is, we're just not going to do that because it's too hard.
Which is like
Ageless Faces, Warder Cloaks.
I'm looking at shows like The Witcher or The Expanse, and I'm just like, the fuck you mean it's too hard? Fuck off. You've got glowing people in space in The Expanse. You've got bubbles on bubbles with dragons and shit in The Witcher. Like, shut up. Don't tell me it's too hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not too hard to animate golden eyes on one character. I'm sorry, it's not. The Witcher has shown us that.
He's in like 4/5 of the scenes, and his eyes are yellow in all the ones except when they're black. Like, so mm-hmm. I do really hold out hope that we're going to get more channeling verbiage, at least in future seasons, because we need tower training montages, and we need training montages. But at this point, I'm not holding out a lot of hope for it being what either of us would find satisfying. So it's frustrating. Yeah.
And my one final complaint is they really did the three boys dirty. They didn't give them screen time. They didn't give them character development. They developed Egwene, they developed Nynaeve, they developed Lan, they developed Moraine, they developed a lot of the side characters. The three boys who I love, and I grew up reading this story, and that was about them. Like, let's be honest, like, the story is about them. It evolves to be about Egwene and Nynaeve as well, but certainly in the beginning it's about the three boys. And this season was not.
No, they were burying the lead so hard that they just ended up lost.
Yeah, it suffocated. Yeah. Like, they really, the hiding who was the Dragon Reborn, I think, was a huge mistake. They made a lot of decisions to make that a mystery when it didn't need to be.
Yeah, it was always going to be the redhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't need to bury the lead so hard. They suffocated it.
No. It would have been interesting if they just thought it was Egwene the whole time and it turned out to be Rand. That I think would have been more interesting than we just don't know which of the 5 of you it is. It like, hey, if we have these 2 competing male side, female side balance, right? Like, let's talk about creating a balance between the 2 of them and give signs that could be one of the 2. I think that would be an interesting way to approach it. It could be any of you, even the one who was clearly born many, many years too late.
Yeah.
What?
Too early.
No.
But
No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, I agree. Like, fundamentally, if they hadn't decided to hide who the Dragon Reborn was so hard, a lot of the other storytelling devices and choices of screen time would have been different. And now that we know, maybe, you know, we're going to be able to have a better rendition of the boys. But yeah, I mean, there was, I'm not a huge fan of the boys, especially in the first book. They're very like generic farm boys 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, it was like, is Perrin's leg gonna get dealt with? Like, are Matt and Rand gonna have like heartfelt crying conversations on the road when they're lost? Like, so much of that was lost for cool panning shots of characters we didn't know to care about, basically.
Yeah. The relationship between Rand, Matt, and Tom that occurs on the road, which is such a big part of book
and it
1.
comes back for books and books and books. Like, it's the Bail Domon of the relationships. And they cut it out. Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't give us any characters that are going to be Easter eggs in the future. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm ready to be done with the complaining. And we're spiraling out into depression. Okay. Moving on to the final category, which is the unexpected. Things that we weren't expecting. We weren't having strong book-based opinions on, just what was surprising and you know, good or bad, but just what was surprising to us. For me, it was that they were melding in-world and real-world swears. I know that was a very divisive point for a lot of people, but I liked it, and I thought it was cool that they actually blended both. They didn't go with all in-world or all real-world. They actually just include both. That was a fun little, like, oh, interesting. Making me love characters that I didn't care about. Leandrin, Alana. Yeah, I mean, I go back to Leanne. So excited when Leanne was cast. Did she have any lines? Not other than ritual lines. She spoke a few times as Keeper, but we did not get, we got like, if she comes, we got Bring the False Dragon, and we got that excellent shot of her looking angry and smashing with her staff. Yeah. But we never met her outside. We never met her. No. So there's your Easter egg character we're going to get to see later. Because if the tower coup happens at all, you know she's going to get some lines in that. So yeah, that was surprising to me. It's just how many characters didn't get depth, didn't get to interact. I've been thinking about relationships versus individuals a lot lately. And that I feel like one of the things that Wheel of Time does really well is it creates relationships between characters. And if you count the number of relationships, that's really where the Wheel of Time wins. Because there are other books and other stories with lots of characters, but they stand alone a lot of times. And the show did that as well. There are a lot of characters in the show, but very few relationships between those characters. I mean, I would say I feel like they spent a lot of time building up relationships more than characters. Yes, but there are fewer of them. Sure. That there are so few, like, they spent a lot of time on Lan and Nynaeve. They spent a lot of time on Lan and Moraine. They spent very little time on Rand and Matt. Despite having a few scenes. They spent 0 time in Perrin and either of the other 2 boys. A lot of time on Egwene and Nynaeve. But then we have all these other characters, like the relationship between Lan and King Algamar. What relationship? Do they have they didn't have one. Yeah. Speaking of relationships, kind of, I guess, it's tangential to relationships, is all the different changed backstories. The number of backstories that they either have decided to make relevant, like Nynaeve's backstory, which is completely irrelevant in the books and never makes an appearance aside from I can track because I wasn't a boy and my father wanted a boy. That's it. So they've added a backstory for her, and then they changed huge parts of backstories for 2 of the boys. Huge changes there. And then also Logain, obviously. I think that might have been the biggest unexpected piece. I mean, I expected it because of the casting news, but if I was just walking up to the series without having paid attention to everything first, having Logain getting so much more depth and screen time, and that was very unexpected to me, and I loved that.
Yes, I like that too.
I'm really digging that as a way of, because how are you going to broaden the world, right? The book starts in the heads of three very isolated people. Well, one very isolated person. And to have Logain give us our first real glimpse of the world outside was not something I expected, aside from the whole, like, being obsessive about the casting news, which that's a thing. But that's unexpected. But
I would have loved to see Logain play some part in the end of the season. Like, maybe he's where Moraine got the sangreal from.
That would have been good.
You know?
Yeah.
Do something to link his whole storyline to the Eye of the World. Make there some reason why we included that for the finale. Because again, there were 8 individual stories told. There were 8 individual episodes. And I don't feel like there was one arc between them all from start to finish.
Yeah.
Like, nothing that happened in any of the episodes had any effect on the ending up until Suan says, I had a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, and also, like, where did that dream come from? What's the...
Yeah, the unexpectedness of Aes Sedai not shielding their dreams, that fucking was very unexpected. It makes me wonder a lot about how the dangers of the dream world are going to be introduced verbally and how they're going to manifest plot-wise. Like, are dreams going to be, like, a lot more dangerous? Are they going to be a lot more fluid? Are we going to have a world of dreams, or just dreams are important and connected? Like...
Well, I mean, if channeling is a soft magic system, dreams are going to be just a whatever you want magic system.
Or that's going to be the hard system.
Yeah, well, I guess that would be nice. But no, the fact that Rand stabbed himself and didn't die in Tel'aran'rhiod. Riyadh.
Well, that was probably a dream shard, because that's Ishi's style.
That was probably a dream shard, yeah.
It's the other unexpected aspects of it. I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, unexpected things we haven't already talked through. The ways were unexpected. I've ranted about that on YouTube. Go watch that if you want to hear me yelling about that. That was unexpected. The Sean Chan costume was unexpected.
That was unexpected. Really good. Really like that. Really liked the Sean Chan. I thought that whole last scene was really cool looking. And then they put a wave against the cliff, but ignoring that. Yeah. Like, why? Everything has to be, oh, that was so great. If only they just didn't do this one thing, So that's why.
Also expected to see a lot more of Bella. The low focus on the creator was unexpected.
Yeah. We had a lot of promises from the crew that Bella was going to be important and they were going to keep track of them and that we would be able to see Bella, and they understood that Bella was important to us and they were going to treat her with respect, and that didn't happen.
Now, a really unexpected thing that I think we can both agree was very cool is the fucking White Cloaks are goddamn scary.
The White Cloaks are scary. Yes. Oh my god, I haven't talked about the White Cloaks at all. How have they completely went out of my head as a whole. But, like, yes, the White Cloaks are terrifying. The fact that they're effective, I'm a good change. Glad they did that. Did
not expect them to be anything but buffoons, and instead I am, like, more scared of them than I am of the Sean Chan, which is a delight. They're so disappointing in the book. Just nonsense the whole time until Galad and Perrin band together to fix them. So really, really enjoying that change in and of itself, and the potential that Valda maybe, like, has a ter'angreal that, like, protects him from mild weaves or something. Like, there's more going on with them than I think there ever were in the books, and I'm excited to see more of that.
Yeah, I had a lot. The way Egwene escaped from Valda makes me wonder how the hell that other yellow Aes Sedai didn't.
Yeah.
Like, because she was able to channel and clearly burn the ropes. Like, he has nothing preventing Aes Sedai from freeing themselves. So why didn't the other yellow get away, who's drained? And again, another thing that, like, just give me an answer. Give me a ter'angreal. Give me Forkroot. Give me something.
Well, they have have to still have cool stuff to give us in future seasons. They can't give us everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if like that's where Matt gets his medallion from? It's not like maybe they cut the fin entirely and he ends up fucking pilfering this random object from a White Cloak, and it turns out that that's like the key to how they fuck over Eyes to Die or something.
Right. But then why didn't it work with Egwene?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't stop her from channeling. It would only stop the channeling from hitting him. So if it's the medallion from the books, because the fin, I would be very surprised if the fin make it into the show. There's only so many metaphysical alternate worlds that they're going to pull in. I think we will get at least one more. We at least need to get Tel'aran'rhiod fleshed out. But portal stones, testing ter'angreal, the glass columns, the fin, like, I don't know how many of those are going to make it in. I mean, we very well may not have the crystal columns at all. We're just going to have, some weird tea that puts you into a long dream state kind of thing. And then they'll cut that out like they did with Avatar. Still mad about that scene being cut out, but
which one? I actually don't. Oh, the movie?
Yeah, so there's a scene in it that I haven't seen, but I read about it. I read a Wired article about it. There was a whole scene that they cut out of Avatar where he goes down under the tree with them for the manhood ceremony thing, and in the movie we all saw, it just cuts to him coming out again. They filmed a whole scene that is an ayahuasca ceremony, where he takes this drink, and there's this bug that bites him, and then he lifts out of his body and has all this psychedelic. It's literally an ayahuasca ceremony.
Are you talking about a live action Avatar movie?
I'm talking about the Fern Gully in space.
Oh, I'm thinking of the live action adaptation of the Fire Nation attacked Avatar,
which I have never gotten into, and so I forget that is a thing to consider. Sorry. In Fern Gully in space, there was an ayahuasca ceremony that got cut out.
Well, we can't make it obvious that this is based on Native Americans.
It's more like we can't make it obvious that drugs are useful.
Well,
that would be my take on it, because drugs are bad.
Fair enough.
But I would not be at all surprised if they go with something more like that for Rand getting his Aiel visions, or just a long-ass story from the Wise Ones. The crystal columns that's going to be an ask. It's going to be a big ask for them to give us the crystal columns, which, that's up there with the Green Man for you. I know. No,
it's way above the Green Man. The Green Man was a nice to have. I would have loved to have seen the Green Man. I think it would have been, and I think it would have been really appropriate. And hell, I've seen other animated plant people. It doesn't seem that hard to do. Do some motion capture and CGI. I mean, obviously difficult from a technical perspective, but not,
yeah. About the crystal columns, I really want that pink crystal that Matt lifted off of the Aiel to be something that we see again when we go to Iridion. I want that to be... That's
part of the crystal columns?
Yeah, one of them got shattered 1,000 years ago when, a male channeler, broke it or something. I want there to be... That pink crystal got so much energy given to it that it's please tell me that that's going to be a piece of Aiel culture that we see.
But again, it's something else that was never followed up on. Matt stole from the Aiel, and then 1 month later, we never saw him collect anything. We never saw him try and sell it. We never saw him show it to Rand and see if Rand reacted to it.
Yeah. Another cool, unexpected thing that I think is fun to talk about is the animated shorts. I was not expecting animated shorts with the episodes, and I really enjoyed them.
I did. I thought they were actually quite a bit better than the show. I thought that they stuck to the lore as it's written. They portrayed things that were very true to the books in a way that is not happening in the show. And it's weird to me because the Amazon lore in the extras written by Sarah Nakamura.
Right, all the X-ray snippets and all that, yeah.
The X-ray snippets, yeah. And then the animated shorts are so loyal to the lore in the books. They are in tune, Sidene, Sidar, all the writing just sticks to the lore, does not change a thing. And then it's very different in the show itself. And so to me, it feels like those things were written and produced without the show. Mm-hmm. That those were hey, here's some history that you can do based on the books. And there wasn't any communication between the animation folks and the show writing folks. And I think the people who wrote the show said, well, that's history. We're not changing the history. You can go ahead and write those.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's nice to get to see the world a little more fleshed out the way that we know it. I enjoyed the animation style. At first, I didn't like how jerky and blurry it was, but it definitely grew on me. So yeah, that was a whole gamut of levels of unexpected for me. And then they didn't give us 8, which was not a happy unexpected. That was frustrating. Really hope we get more of that.
Yep. Oh, Fire Phoenix brings up some of my favorite things in the show that I completely forgot about, which are the songs.
Oh,
both
yeah.
Yeah, I've got to bring those up. Thank you for bringing those up because yes, I like Tom's song. I love, I sing that all the time. The Man Who Can't Forget, like I love the graveliness of it. That totally fits my voice. I would have loved 5 more songs from Tom, or at least 1 more song from Tom. I think we always
one more verse,
or maybe something jubilant from Tom. Anyway, and then yeah, the Song of Manetheren, sung by everybody harmonizing. God, that was amazing.
I love that they did harmonies. In both cases, I couldn't understand why they only gave us a verse. Like, Matt's given us a marching song that should take us for at least a mile down the road, not 100 feet. And Tom is like, big, huge, expansive, I'm a gleeman. And he sings a verse. That's a 5-minute ballad. Dude, more. But yes, I like that he actually played at least the opening chords of the guitar. He didn't play the whole bridge, but like they actually got a guitar player to play the bard. Like, thank you.
Well, but use that more, you know?
Exactly.
And it was also weird, like he came out in this big production, played one chord, and then
it was an odd time jump. It's
like, yeah, it would have made more sense if Random Matt had walked in on that and like that had been the end of it. I think that would have been better than, oh, the Gleeman's coming, big introduction, little song.
Yeah, but I loved that the village people sang in harmony. That just spoke to a richness of the culture that they come from. That was nice. That was one of those really compressed bits of world building where it's like, yeah, no, this is a very musical culture. And you can tell because even when they're all sad and haven't warmed their voices up, they can just be in harmony together. That was nice.
And bringing it back to when you say it's all executives that cause the problems, that singing is probably one of my favorite, most compact, most best world building in the season. And Rafe said that he had to fight extra hard to get it in, that everybody wanted to cut it at every level.
Yep.
And that's where I can see backwards priorities.
Yeah, that's what happens when you keep creatives on too tight of a leash and let the bottom line rule all. That's what happens is you get people like us who are very happy about the show overall, who are ecstatic that it's happening, and who will spend more time talking about the flaws than the benefits because we see what it could have been. We see the potential that has not been realized.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think... I guess I'll just say I didn't fall in love with the Wheel of Time TV show the way I wanted to. I tried really hard, and I kept being more disappointed. And I thought it would go the other way. I thought the more I watched it, the more I thought about it, the more I would get into it. And it's actually been the opposite. The more I think about it, the less impressed I am with what was produced.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag for me because the sets are amazing and the actors are amazing.
I'm nodding both of those.
We haven't even talked about the performances, but like across the board, just standing ovation.
Rosamund Pike, Daniel Henney.
Like, they're so good.
We don't need to talk about them. They were good. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem too with all of our commentary on it, and why I think we're very done talking about it is because it is so much easier to talk about what we wish it could have been because there is so much good stuff, but it's hard to just say like, yes, they were amazing, and like how do you have a conversation about that, right? Like bitching is a more thorough conversation.
Yes.
But yeah, I re-binged it over the last week, and I'm falling in love with it in its own right. But as an adaptation of the books, no, there's a pretty distinct divergence in my head happening now, and I can enjoy it for what it is, but it's hard to enjoy it as a take on the books. or as an adaptation of the book. It's a take on the books. It is not an adaptation of the books. And I'm not entirely mad about it, but it's
right.
There's a distinct new category in my head. They are not resting together. They are in different bins.
Yeah. It more feels like the show was produced by someone who was described the books as opposed to someone who read the books.
Yeah, which is a shame because we know a lot of people who read the books are involved on the creative side. It's really...
Yep.
It's unfortunate, and I do have hopes that it will grow into itself. There's obviously, this was only one season of a planned 8. There is a lot of room for them to grow, for them to make changes, for things to come together in a way that is more satisfying. But as of now, there is a lot of unrealized potential, shall we say.
Yep. And I will 100% still say this show has potential, despite all my complaints, despite the, everything that I didn't like about this season. I saw a lot of potential there, and I saw a lot of Eye of the Worldisms. For lack of a better description, this is something that had a lot of good in it. And if they take that good and amplify it and run with it and give it a chance to breathe, I think the show can get good. If they double down on what they've done and keep a choppy, poorly edited, not well fleshed out storyline, I don't know that it's going to last very long.
It's going to be anxiety-inducing to move forward with watching this, for sure.
Making it the next Lord of the Rings, I think, has done so much harm to it because it's had a lot of executive pressure on it, as opposed to just making it what it is, the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, it's Wheel of Time is, in many ways, like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, it is genre-defining. And to try to fit it in the mold of Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings is... It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate shadow to have to be in. And again, we've got many seasons for it to be given its own room to fly and its own space to do its own thing. Like, that potential has not been ruined. That potential is absolutely there for them to make those choices.
Yes.
And I am going to choose to believe that they'll do that. I'm going to believe that.
Yeah. It's no Legend of the Seeker. Like, after a couple episodes of Legend of the Seeker, I was like, I'm done. They can never redeem it. This is terrible. This is not gonna, this is bad, right? Same thing with Shannara Chronicles, right? Like, it's just bad. First season ruined it. There was no chance of no way to come back from that. As opposed to something like The Expanse. First season was a little rough on The Expanse. First season was not the best TV. The actors were, if anything, I'd say they had the opposite problem. Good writing, kind of hammy acting. But now The Expanse is considered the best show on television, like, of all time, so I see there's some real potential for the Wheel of Time. I am very excited to see where they go, very hopeful, but I don't think that I would put a lot of money on it.
We will see. I really feel like season 2 is going to tell us a lot of, well, I've been saying that since the beginning. When we see this, we'll know that. When we see this, we'll know that. I mean, that's just part of the process. Yeah. I do suspect that we will get the whole show. I don't think that they'll have to tank it really hard, I think, for it to have its plug pulled. And they're going to have to tank it really hard to make me not watch it. I will watch it through a lot.
Right. Oh, I will. Yeah.
But yeah, I wish it was easier to have a non-complicated review. I do wish that.
I wish it was easier to recommend.
The reason I can't recommend it to most people is because almost everyone who I talk TV with doesn't want violence on their screens. So it's just like, it's not even like, I have recommended it to quite a few people, but they're all acquaintances. All the people close to me that I want to share art with are all like, I don't want to see violence. So it's like, what can I even do? But like you said, Eye of the Worldisms, right? This is, in many ways, keeping in the spirit of the books in that regard. And that's not maybe the thing that they should have kept the spirit of, but... Right.
And as long as they do what Jordan did after Eye of the World, which is bring the world together, keep it coherent, tell a good story, keep what was good from the Eye of the World, and roll with it, I think they can really bring the show into something that I will like quite a bit. But we'll see. Probably at the end of 2020 too.
Yeah, I'm just assuming November, just because that feels coherent and round to me. I have no basis for that assumption. It just seems logical to me.
It seems logical and based on when they were filming.
But yeah, the waiting game's gonna suck. Yeah. The other really frustrating thing for me is I don't want to engage with like most of the fandom at all. Like I prefer Discord even before the show came out. I was never on Twitter of Time, particularly the Facebook group's not, but since getting into the show and trying to be on Twitter of Time more, mostly because I'm trying to distract myself from having a life, I'm really not enjoying it. I'm not enjoying seeing people argue about the show. I'm not enjoying observing the discourse, or I have no desire to engage in the discourse. And that's a little frustrating to me because I found such a great community through Discord, through this podcast and through Discord.
Yep.
And I'm really just retreating to the safest, tiniest corners with the smallest circle of my closest friends. And my whole like online existence is shaped around Wheel of Time now, and I don't want to deal with any of it. Just frustrating.
I want to have a, serious conversation, not right now, but I've definitely had a very serious mental health hit because of the toxicity of the fandom post-show. I have, a lot of the reasons why you haven't seen a lot of content coming out from, our YouTube channel and the podcast is that I really am very depressed by the reaction of the fans. And it's made it very difficult for me to sit down and work on Wheel of Time when all I see out there is vitriol.
Yeah, and even the good people who have great opinions and are reasonable and awesome are responding to a vitriolic shit show. And it comes through in their commentary. It comes through in what they have to say, the angers that they have, the word choices they use. You can tell that they are dealing with a very shitty thing, even if we have our own timelines muted and blocked and all of that. And it's really sucky to have this thing that we've put so much love into and care so much about suddenly becoming this like tug of rope in the culture wars. It's very, very infuriating. And
we've gotten some emails because we tried to take a general positive attitude towards the show. We got quite a bit of toxic feedback.
We have gotten comments. We have gotten I've mostly seen the comments. I've deleted all the ones I don't like. Spoilers, if you comment onto our content and comment some shit, I will just delete it. I'm just gonna delete it. This is not a fucking democracy. So yeah, that's been frustrating. I'm very excited to get back to our usual wheelhouse, our safe little bubble of Path of Daggers book content. That's going to be nice. Obviously, you still have to deal with editing our videos and releasing them, and I'll be publishing them and monitoring the comments for a few days.
We're still going to try and push that out. My huge apologies. This past December, the show came out, birthday, Christmas. I had to move. My girlfriend got COVID and I had to isolate. I tested negative, but I was still sick, so who knows? Work has had issues as well. So it's on a lot of levels, it's been a very, very difficult 2 months for me on both a personal, professional, and hobby level. All three of them sort of hit hard times all at the same time. So I'm sorry that the content hasn't come out yet for those of you who were greatly anticipating our lengthy breakdowns. But it really has. It's been a perfect storm. And my girlfriend's fine. She was sick for a couple days and was tired for a couple of days after that. And now she's doing great. So,
but we did record the content.
We did record the content.
We got these big, huge emotional explosions of positivity, and that will be coming out over time to tide you all over before the next season. There's a lot of content.
I guarantee I'll get it all done before next season. That's the only thing I guarantee.
Yeah. And we really didn't do a lot of complaining in those videos. We very much focused on the positive stuff. It wasn't really until episode 8 that we started to get into that.
8, I complained. Yeah.
To that ripping. And that was definitely deliberate. That was definitely like, I'm putting my blinders on to create this content. So for all of the complaining that you have heard here and all of that, if you go watch the videos, you will see a heavy overemphasis on the stuff that we loved, which is all genuine. It was just editorialized. And yeah, I think we did a good job with that. I think that will be good content for all of you who do care to hear that. And, if we have to turn off commenting, then that means we're getting a lot more views than we currently are, which would actually be kind of cool.
There was a lot of hope in those videos too. There was a lot of hope in those videos.
Yeah, which at this point we can look back with more sober eyes, which is not
as to what
always,
we're gonna get. Yeah.
Yeah. So there will probably be a strategy change for how we do season 2, an opinion change. But I think we're done talking about the show. And so, yeah, I will just reiterate, everyone, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, watch the videos, hit like on them. Maybe don't read the comments because who knows? I'm only going to monitor the comments for a few days. If they end up shitty, whatever. That's irrelevant. Nobody comments on our videos because literally like 1,000 people will watch them ever. Yeah, we are going to be back to Path of Daggers where we left off starting next week. And we're going to be recording 1 episode a week for the foreseeable future while Seth edits and I attempt to get my Broken Earth butt in gear.
Right. So we're going to ease back into the podcast content. It will come out. 1 episode a week is going to be just a little bit slower, guys. Again, I just have all this TV content to edit and... I think just a few other things going on.
Yeah, otherwise, follow us on social media so that way you can get alerts for when we post episodes, because that's pretty much the only content we put on social media is alerts that we made episodes. It's pretty much all we do. And make sure to give us a review on your podcast app. If you have not given us a review of our podcast on whatever app you're using, it doesn't take that long. Go give us a review. Help us get some more eyeballs, eardrums onto our content.
Yeah. Earballs. And if you gave a review 3 years ago, maybe come back to it again, because it's a slightly different show than it was 3 years ago. So give us another shout out.
Yeah. And make me feel good about the fact that I came onto the show and ruined it with my leftist woke politics, because apparently some people don't like that. And it would be nice if the reviews reflected that not only angry people can write reviews if you enjoy the content.
Yes. But as we were saying, it's a lot easier to come up with negative content than positive content. So, you know.
It really is. And that is the reality of the thing and creative content. And for the sake of our mental health, we should remember that is a pattern and remember to focus on the good shit, because the amount of pink that the Tuatha wore made me very happy. There was a lot of fuchsia. When I was a little kid, fuchsia was my favorite color, and I really liked seeing so much fuchsia on random Tuatha extras.
Oh, man. My favorite comment about the wokeness, I'm sorry, was that someone wrote, when it was you and Patrick and it was just occasionally on the side, it was fine. But now that Arabia is on and it's front and center, I'm like, it's the same thing. We didn't
My favorite part of that comment was it's the issue, the most current issue, and it's I'm talking about colonialism and slavery, and it's these are not new issues.
People who think that critical race theory has brought up a new problem in this country need to die. Yeah.
Give us some dopamine and give us a positive review on whatever app you use, because it will literally make our days. It takes 100 nice comments to even begin to balance out one random mean comment. So go out there in your legions and give us that insurance against random assholes that have no care for other people's feelings on the internet because they exist.
Yeah, if you're willing to counteract those assholes brigading Wheel of Time TV with shitty reviews, do the same for us.
Yeah, exactly. We would appreciate it.
And if Amazon, if you're going to send us a check, I'd appreciate it. That would be cool. I haven't seen one yet.
Yeah. Would be happy to accept their money for continuing to share our honest opinions. That would be fine.
And just FYI, we haven't received anything free from Amazon. We haven't received a ticket. We haven't received an interview. We haven't received an invite. We haven't...
Not any posters for the walls. No yachts. Distinct lack of yachts.
Nope. The extreme lack of yachts.
No yachts.
What the fuck? Come on, Amazon. Seriously? I thought that yachts would be distributed to all the podcasters. That's why I got into this.
Exactly.
So, and they didn't even fly us out to London, right? There are some folks who did get a few little benefits, and
honestly, having thought about it and knowing my mental health and my anxiety levels, I actually don't want the pressure of interviewing an actor. I don't want the pressure of traveling to somewhere. I actually am kind of content to let the more media savvy, coherent people carry that load, because I
don't want the unconscious bias of being catered to. from Amazon.
No, I'm not even worried about that. I just don't want to act like an idiot in front of any of these people that I'm, in love with. On the one hand, of course, I want the recognition, but like on the other hand, I'm actually really content having our little wheelhouse with our little group of friends, and just I'm less upset about it than I could be.
Good, turn recording off.
On that note, editing, it's a good time.
So many pretty people. So many pretty people.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?